President Joe Biden says he's saddened was his word, and shocked, by the attack last Friday on author Salman Rushdie at a literary festival in New York State. Saddened. But the word that I'm waiting for Biden to say is Iran. Iran is the word. And I want him to finally realise what he's dealing with here. Iran, this fascist Islamist regime, is now directly complicit in an attempted murder on US soil. Directly complicit on an attempt to stifle the free speech that the US considers sacred. What is he going to do about that? Now, Salman Rushdie, terrific author, world famous, he was stabbed in the face, the throat, the chest, the stomach, the leg by a 24-year-old Muslim man and rushed to hospital in a critical condition. He will survive, but probably will be left blind in one eye. Now, Joe Biden apparently does accept that this was an attack on free speech by a Muslim who thinks that Rushdie should die for mocking Islam in his bestseller, The Satanic Verses, written 33 years ago. In his statement, Biden didn't go through that background at all. He didn't explain any of that, but he did say that he and his wife Jill today stand in solidarity with Rushdie and all those who stand for freedom of expression. So yes, this was, he believes, I'm assuming, an attack on free speech, an attack specifically on Rushdie. Except, like I say, Biden did not say exactly why he knew or assumed that this was that. And that silence was telling. Now, of course, he was right. You just joined the dots. Rushdie's attacker is allegedly a 24-year-old Lebanese Muslim who had pictures of Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Khomeni and other members of the regime all over his Facebook page. I think you get a few clues there. What's more, Iran's former supreme leader 3 decades ago, Ayatollah Khomeni, he issued a religious decree, a fatwa, sentencing Rushdie to death for blasphemy, whipping up protesters who were promising to kill the author for him.
I want to have a dialogue with you by a machine gun, and we will kill you.
Even in Britain, where Rushdie was living back then, former pop star Cat Stevens supported this death sentence and said he sure wouldn't give Rushdie any shelter if Rushdie asked.
I'd tried to phone the Ayatollah Khomeni and tell him exactly where this man is.
And people have tried before to kill Rushdie. One would-be assassin, yes, he just managed to blow himself up. But Rushdie's Japanese editor was murdered, his Norwegian publisher shot, and his Italian translator stabbed. And this is not ancient history I'm telling you here. This fatwa lives on. Less than 1 week before Rushdie was stabbed, Iran's official online news site called his death sentence an unforgettable verdict for Muslims. 5 years ago, Iran's current supreme leader, Ayatollah Khomeni, he reaffirmed Rushdie's death sentence, tweeting that the fatwa of his predecessor was solid and irrevocable. And 10 years ago, what's more, a charity controlled by Khomeni, his regime, it upped the reward for killing Rushdie to $3.3 million US. And now Iran's newspapers, the ones that are close to Khomeni, of course, they're celebrating Rushdie's, his near-death experience, the attack. Knife in Rushdie's neck, says this one. Papers are also saying 1,000 bravos to the attacker. Divine vengeance, some are calling it. And one said, the hand of the man who tore the neck of God's enemy must be kissed. Now, to repeat, I'm talking here about newspapers that are linked to Iran's highest political and religious authority. And these are people praising as divine an attack in which Rushdie was stabbed 3 times in the neck, 4 times in the stomach, once in the right eye, 3 times in the chest, and once in the leg. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? What does that say about this regime? And what does it say about the kind of Islam that it preaches from the very top, from its supreme leader? Now, I've heard apologists in the past say And some of them are even writers like the late John Le Carre, saying, oh, well, Rushdie did provoke Muslims. He did mock their faith. What did he expect? But lots of people mock lots of things, at least in the West, without having their throat slashed and their eye stabbed. We call it freedom of speech. But why is criticising Islam so different and so lethal? Why have we seen, for instance, Dutch film director Theo van Gogh murdered for a film criticising Islam? Why did Muslim terrorists kill 12 people at a French satirical magazine, Charlie Hebdo, for publishing cartoons of Muhammad? Why was French teacher Samuel Paty beheaded 2 years ago after showing his class those cartoons in a lesson on free speech? And why did protesters in Britain last year force a school to suspend a teacher after also teaching children about the cartoons and free speech? But more to the point here, why are Iran's top leaders actively urging the murder of a British writer living on American soil? And what is Joe Biden going to do about it now that Salman Rushdie does lie seriously injured in a New York hospital? Iran has a long history of urging the murder of this man. People around the West have lived in fear, some shot, stabbed or even killed as a result of what Iran has been doing. And our free speech in the West is also damaged as a result. So many people now are so scared to speak, especially about Islam. So what we are actually seeing is an act of war on US territory that was incited by Iran, encouraged by Iran, with the rewards offered by Iran. This attack on Rushdie wasn't just by some lone crazy who suddenly at midnight woke up with an idea. I think I'll go and stab Salman Rushdie. Thought of it all by himself. Totally his own idea. That's not what happened at all. That's not why Iran's newspapers are celebrating today. This is Iran's war. Let's call it a culture war if you must, a real culture war, with bodies. This is Iran's war on the writers and the fundamental freedoms of the West. And Joe Biden should call it out. He should name Iran and hold it morally responsible. This cannot be dismissed and forgotten as one random attack out of the blue. This demands a real response, and not just a statement saying the president is sad.